Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is Joshua Kahn with the news. Domestic terrorist group, the Militant Midwest Weather People, have been reported nearby. Listeners, stay away from any place notorious for small talk regarding the elements, such as quaint diners, gas stations, and parks, as it is likely to draw their ire. Up next, this weekend's forecast. I'll never tell. You're listening to Derry Public Radio.
This is Derry Public Radio.
Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King book club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Kahn, alongside Benjamin Graham.
Hey, constant readers.
And CM Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
And today, we are covering the second half of Firestarter, and we have Ben leading our discussion. Ben, take it away.
All right, Firestarter, where we left off, our two main characters, Charlie and Andy McGee, have been captured by the evil government agency, The Shop. And we pick up almost 5 months later. Huge time skip. A lot has changed for our protagonists.
I was shocked by the time jump, but then I was very happy about it when they explained the nothing that happened in 5 months.
I think it's a great idea. It's such a huge shift for everything that's happened so far in the book. It's jarring in a good way.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Going into it, we start out with, we need to come up with a name for this very specific Stephen King move of the beginning of this chapter starts with the chain of events that ended in such destruction and loss of life began with a summer storm and the failure of 2 generators. That
Foreshadowing?
Yeah, it just occurred to me that we totally have a word for it, and I blocked it from my memory.
I saw the smile creep across CM's face.
I literally wiped the term delicious foreshadowing from my memory.
Welcome back, delicious foreshadowing.
It's fine, because I'm going to get to say daddy a lot this episode.
Oh my God.
To pay back.
Why?
Yes.
They say daddy. The whole second half of this book is just daddy issues, the novel.
That is very true.
Anyway, so it's been 6 months since Charlie and Andy have been captured, and the shop hasn't got shit.
Which I love.
The shop is the most fucking useless villains. It drives me insane.
It's like they should be the best villains because they are a government agency and they're involved in other books, as we discussed, like The Stand and The Mist. But they are, as a group, they're Rita Repulsa's putties.
It's kind of nice for once, though, that this secret government agency who should know what they're doing are totally inept. It's like a little bit gratifying.
It really is. As we go into this, we start up with Rainbird coming into the shop in orderly's whites.
In serious commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Like he bought a beater car. He parks in the back employee lot. His manager thinks he is just an orderly. He is dedicated to this bit.
He wears an eye patch now.
Yes.
Rainbird's ruined face is that's showing who he is on the inside as a person to everyone that sees him, because he's just, as Charlie kind of points out near the end of the book, he's just dead inside. And by having this ruined, scarred face, everyone that sees him is immediately like, And so putting this eye patch on is kind of the most obvious metaphor.
Sure.
For he is hiding who he is from Charlie.
Very true.
And it's kind of working.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Where is her intuition when it comes to him?
Well, she can't sense John.
Mm-hmm.
Later on in the book, she kind of compares him. There's one other person in her life that she's never been able to get a read on. And it was this old man that her and her dad knew back in her free days, who was a Holocaust survivor, who is another person who's experienced this extreme trauma, I guess, that just like masks.
It's interesting, the difference, though, that on the one hand, the person who's experienced trauma, and on the other, the person who's caused severe trauma too. I mean, one person's sort of like that evil, quote unquote.
He's also experienced trauma.
Yeah.
That story of him in the POW camp isn't entirely untrue.
Right.
Let's go into what happens with the power outage.
Okay. Everything is business as usual. They know a storm is coming in. People have talked about it. They don't think it's going to be bad. However, the storm becomes way more brutal than they thought it was going to be. Lightning strikes the power station, which causes the entire shop to black out. Then the backup generators turn on, and because of a mechanical failure, they blow within the first minute of being on. So the entire shop is completely plunged into darkness. And Rainbird becomes the most genius improviser in the world and realizes by pretending to be afraid of the dark, he can make himself sympathetic to Charlie. And that was a stroke of brilliance.
And there are no windows or anything. Like, they are completely in the dark. And it took me a minute to realize that, because I thought there would be windows. I don't know why. I mean, she's powerful, but that seems so horrible to put a little girl in a room for 5 months with no windows.
No, it is perfectly black. And we get to Andy's side. He describes, like, you think you know darkness. Like, you think you've seen dark. But this was like the perfect darkness of a cave.
And he like fumbles his way around his room, just bashing into stuff. But the most terrifying moment, because we're jumping back and forth between what Charlie's experiencing and what Andy's experience in this perfect darkness. And while Charlie's is reluctantly comforting Rainbird, because she says before, giving into him even a little bit feels like it could be dangerous. So there's her instinct a little bit,
Yeah.
But then Andy, on the other hand, who is completely by himself, has the thought of the building's on fire and they left me here to die, which is horrifying.
And he thinks that because he hasn't been able to do anything for 5 months. He's genuinely tried to push. He's been trying to cooperate with them for some reason, and he just can't do it. So he thinks, I'm useless. Why would they come save me? And he's also pretty doped up, and he describes himself as like fat and dopey.
Yeah, he's hooked on Thorazine. He's been just stoned, and he's given up. He's completely given up. Also, this segment made me think of I cast Rainbird as what's his name? Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. Andy is Chris Pratt.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah, I couldn't not see Andy as Chris Pratt in this.
I'd watch that remake.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so in the dark, Charlie is with Rainbird, and Rainbird uses this as an opportunity to get her to pity him by telling this story. And he tells her this story about how he was in Vietnam, and the Viet Cong captured him, and they had Claymore Mine had blown off half of his face, and they just threw him in a hole where he was fed rotten meat and forced to shit in a corner for 6 months in this horrible story. And it's a lie. Kind of. I would suggest that the truth is worse. Maybe not. Okay. Well, the lie is bad, but the truth is his face got blown off in Vietnam by his own people.
Yeah,
the US,
by friendly fire.
Yeah, the US troops, they were all doing peyote and wandering through the forest when they wandered into an ambush set up by other American troops, which just shows how much the United States is fucked over Rainbird.
Yeah.
So like through this early part of the second half, I was so sympathetic, as scary, and like his intentions are very clear. He is going to murder Charlie. But I was like, come on. Like, I don't think he's doing it because he's naturally evil. I think it's because he has been turned into this killing machine, essentially. Killing is all he knows.
I would be interested to know who Rainbird was before the military. I would be very interested to know what his growing up or whatever was like, and how this turned him, or was he really a bad person and this just made him worse?
I would love a Rainbird prequel, but also I would suggest it not be written by Stephen King. I think because he tries to make his Native American like heritage a part of his character so much. King doesn't really say anything that interesting about it. He's just like, he's an Indian. And it's like, okay.
Whereas he could
King,
speak to
I think
the experience.
I think someone with that experience should write his story.
No, yeah.
When
you said he was making his intentions clear, I thought you also meant CM's favorite intention, where at the end he says he thinks he might be falling in love with her. CM, remember last episode when you were like, "Oh, he's obsessed with her, but not in a creepy way, thank God." And I laughed.
On the one hand, I feel like this book is trying to almost make us see him through Charlie's eyes, because there are moments where you're temporarily sympathetic to him. And then he says something like, oh, I have her right where I want her, or he creepily smiles behind his hand, or he says, I'm falling in love with an 8-year-old girl. And you're like, no, this is gross. So to your point, Ben, I think a lot of bad things happen to a lot of people. Some people coincidentally just are horrible and have something wrong with their brains. I don't know. And they end up becoming murderers or doing terrible things. And other people get stronger for it. I think he's the first.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a monster. Like, he's a bad guy. But, like, yeah, no, I completely agree.
He needs to back up off Charlie's dick, man.
This is another point where I still do not think it is a romantic love. He is not
okay.
This
love.
Sentence isn't, but later it kind of sounds like it might be a little bit.
She was also described, the word woman has been used to describe her. She is 8, maybe 9. Like, let's be generous. She's 9. She's a child. And her long legs were described.
Yeah.
That's all Stephen King.
Okay. There's a part where he's in the kitchen. It's after he's gained her confidence. And he, like, sees her, and he does describe her looks a little too much. And then there's,
and her
like...
feet. There's a Quentin Tarantino moment.
Well, no, okay. She's standing in this pose that he specifically says is pre-erotic, which I think King is like, see, it's not sexual. No. It's so much worse.
Putting the word pre in front of it is like saying,
doesn't
no
make
offense,
it better.
But I'm not racist, but don't do it. Don't finish that sentence.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
That's all I have to say about the book.
Okay, so the lights go out and they're stuck in this darkness, and Rainbird gains the confidence of Charlie, but something important happens to Andy as well. In the 6 months that has gone by, he has completely lost the push. He has tried and tried, and he just believes that it's gone. He's lost this thing that they were after him for in the first place. Until the darkness comes and he freaks out, and he gets into the bedroom and falls asleep and has a dream. I love King dream sequences.
Oh my God,
King dreams are always amazing.
So he has this dream that involves a woman who he used to help. And we know that he did motivational things, and he helped business people have more confidence and move up in their careers. And he also helped people lose weight through a weight loss program where on the outside it appeared to be like this, diet and exercise thing. But he, of course, pushed each woman to lose weight.
And before we go on with the dream, can I just say, it's mentioned in the first half of the book and explained in this, but I think it says so much about Andy's character that he has this amazing power. This power, he could walk into a bank and say, give me all your money and then forget my face. He could do so many incredibly powerful things with the push. And what does he do with it? he runs self-help seminars. That's the sweetest thing. That is adorable.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so we get more detail about this one woman in particular who had participated in his weight loss program, and she'd gained weight and it was affecting her marriage, and she felt terrible about herself. And her main concern was just that she would eat and eat, and she'd have all these snacks around all the time, and even when she wasn't hungry. And so Andy pushed her so that she didn't feel like eating and snacking all the time. And she sticks out in his mind because a lot of his customers return at some point to, he says, basically brag about all their success. But this lady actually came back to thank him. So he's moving through these corridors and he's passing all these weird rooms. And in one of them, Dr. Wainless is playing a huge accordion, and he has a sign around his neck that reads, "There are none so blind as those who will not see."
He looks into a room and there's just a woman floating and like ricocheting off the walls of a padded cell. What the hell was that about?
I want to know who else they have in there. Like, I don't know.
See, I was wondering that is that literally another person in this facility, or is it a weird allusion to the echoes?
I was thinking more of the ricochet.
Yeah.
So yeah, the kind of that same thing. It's like a manifestation of what he's capable of.
Yeah.
In another room, he sees Charlie, and she's talking to Long John Silver, a dude with an eye patch. And Andy doesn't know who he is, but it makes him nervous. And then he comes across a pirate chest, and it's heavy, and he thinks, he knows that he has to move it, and he'll know where he needs to move it to when he sees it. And it's heavy, and he realizes that it's not hurting or straining his muscles. And then he has this thought that keeps occurring, and it is, the brain is a muscle. So he eventually comes to a dead end, and there's a disposal box on the wall, and this lady who he helped is waiting there. And she tells him, you helped me, and now I'm going to help you. And he lifts the chest, and he thinks that he's getting rid of the push. And he's like, what is this going to be like? This thing that I've had since college when it's gone. But what comes out instead is not the push, it's all these little blue pills. So he basically pushes himself, which I didn't expect and is so cool. Did this make you guys think of Misery? Of Paul being hooked on the drugs?
A little bit.
It kind of reminded me of that, just the way King writes about addiction, I guess.
It's a combination of, if there are two things that King just fucking is the master of, it's writing dreams and addiction. That's my two favorite things.
It really humanizes people with addiction because it's easy sometimes when you get frustrated to forget, like, well, that's addiction. That's this, it's difficult.
Yeah. And the fact that his brain did it while he was sleeping because his push was hiding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Super cool. And even more cool is that when he wakes up, he's this like just sad sack that is given up and said, this is my life now. But he wakes up and literally his first thought is, I'm fucking out of here.
Yep.
Which made me just cheer. And as the lights come back on, Rainbird has sat and listened to Charlie talk about everything for 7 hours. The lights have been out. And she's fallen asleep on his arm. And he carries her to bed. And she says, "Good night, Daddy." And I shuddered forever.
Can I talk about the meeting?
What?
With Hochstetter, Cap, and Rainbird? That meeting.
Oh, first, Patrick Hochstetter. Anybody know that name?
Yeah.
He's the sociopath from It.
Yeah. I thought that was the same name.
Not the same guy,
Not the same guy,
obviously,
but-
because that guy gets eaten by weird flesh mosquitoes. But yeah, it's the same name.
We should have mentioned, too, the conclusion of Rainbird and Charlie's conversation. I mean, he disclosed a lot, and then she disclosed a lot. And he ends up, he ends up telling her, you need to practice control, and you need to get what you need from them by giving and taking.
Yeah.
That's
kind of what
takes
the conversation
place over the next several weeks.
Yeah.
He slowly brings it up, and she
Which leads to an
relents.
interesting meeting.
Right. Yeah. So after he has been telling her that she should give in and have that make herself useful and get something out of it. They have a meeting that's Hochstetter, Cap, and Rainbird. And Hochstetter is furious about this entire thing and screams at Rainbird for getting involved and putting himself as this centerpiece and convincing her that she can get something out of this. And Rainbird, just super calm, totally fine, and basically says, you're lucky this happened. If you were so smart, you would have manufactured this accident on your own, and then we wouldn't be here. But tough shit, I am. Mm-hmm. The note that I made, Rainbird proceeds to explain the obvious for 5 pages. Then the following note, am I smarter than this book, or are these leaders this dumb?
Oh, they're so dumb.
They're really dumb.
I think Cap is onto it, though, and we find that out later, right? Mm-hmm. He figures it out at some point.
Yeah, but there's no forethought at all.
No,
on the shop side. Thing.
Well, and the thing he figures out is that they have another ace up their sleeve, because now Rainbird and Charlie have a relationship. Mm-hmm. So when she gets to the point, which she will, and that's what Hochstetter's upset about, where she's like, I want to see my dad. I'm not doing this anymore. They can use Rainbird against her.
Exactly.
Yes.
But he says that, and both of them look at each other like, what could it be?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because he doesn't give away what it is. He's
like,
I'm just going to let them figure it out.
This is the most obvious thing in the world.
Well, and the one's a child psychiatrist or just a psychiatrist?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, Hochstetter is not smart.
At least he's not practicing psychology.
That's very true.
So it's been 3 weeks since the blackout, and things are picking up. Rainbird has essentially slowly talked Charlie into giving into participating in the tests. But before the first test happens, Andy goes on a walk with Dr. Pinchot.
This is nuts, you guys.
Pinchot, this whole sequence with Pinchot ends up being so fucking cool.
It is after the whole book of the echoes. I don't want to do an echo. That would be really bad, guys. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it is.
I kind of had like a vague idea where I thought I knew what it was and what would happen. Mm-hmm. But the way that it is carried out is just so tragically awesome.
So well written. It's delivered in just the right amount, just bits and pieces, and the way it escalates is crazy. Andy is going on a walk with his doctor, who's been in charge of his
and he's been
treatment,
hiding his pills, so he is no longer doped up at this point.
And so he decides today's the day. I'm going to push him. They go out for a walk along the duck pond that's on the grounds. And Andy, just a light push. It's been months since he's pushed anyone, so he has it all built up again. He's at 100%. And he just pushes him a light push. It's not even anything major. He's just like, tell me about the roads around this compound. What goes where? And almost immediately, this guy's brain breaks.
Yeah, it does. What I wrote down was that he gets him to talk about something being pretty. I don't remember what was pretty, but
I don't even think he gets him to. He just says it.
Oh, he's talking about the area that they're in, and he talks about that it's very pretty, and then his brain makes the association from pretty to holes to his wife to a garbage disposal, which I thought at first, that's hilarious that the jump from wife to garbage disposal is made. But, oh man, is it not funny in the way I thought it would be?
Well, is this where, or does it happen later?
It happens.
The garbage disposal is described as vaginal?
Yeah.
I made that note.
I don't like that. I don't like it one bit.
That comes up in a while. But at first, he's just like, he makes these weird statements, and then Andy goes, uh-oh.
Yep.
And then goes back to his quarters, and he's like, hope that doesn't come back. It does.
What's so crazy about Andy recognizing that, though, is that he thinks about the things, the images, the associations that he was making, and he's like, yeah, that's happened before, and sometimes it's because there's something like dark, hidden wrong about the person, and it's like trying to come up, and then I have to fix it. I have to stop the echoes.
Yeah.
But he doesn't for him.
Yeah, well, there was a guy before when he was doing these self-help seminars. There was a businessman who somehow got the idea of this Edgar Allan Poe short story and Russian roulette stuck in his head. And since he sees Andy all the time, he keeps saying, he's like, I've been thinking about pulling my service revolver out and playing Russian roulette. And Andy's just like, you never read that short story. And he goes, okay. And it fixes whatever weird cross connection there is in the brain, which that's fascinating to me. That's the way the brain works. Sometimes there are these weird connections that don't make any sense. And the echo just like solders them together in a really unhealthy way.
Now, if only he'd made that dollar bill echo, none of this stuff would have happened. Problem solved.
Oh my God.
So he goes back and Pinchot, there's a couple of memos where Pinchot's like, we need 3 more weeks of testing. And whoever...
Because Andy suggests that
because
to him.
Andy pushes him to say, I want to stick around for 3 more weeks. I think it's
Between Hochstarter. Hochstarter's like, yeah, if you want to waste your time, all right, go for it.
Hochstarter says only 6 to 8 weeks. That's the max.
He had argued against Hochstarter about sending Andy. They're going to send him to Hawaii. And he's like, you're the one who was like saying we're done. Now okay, fine, whatever, man.
And so Hochstarter's like, it's 6 to 8 weeks max. And that makes Pinchot just, okay.
Think about having sex with a garbage disposal.
Okay, so this is, I just wrote crazy background character backstory time. My favorite, because we get one full 3 pages about Pinchot, a character we have barely met.
Barely.
But now we know that in college, some frat brothers made him clean up a kitchen and then jerk off together.
But he was
dressed.
Yeah.
He was dressed in women's undergarments.
So,
because women's clothes will make you crazy.
Yeah.
Is that a statement of fact?
Apparently.
It's just like it comes out of nowhere and you go, oh, this is going to go somewhere. Because the whole time he's like remembering this while staring deeply into the garbage disposal.
Ben. The vaginal garbage disposal. If I had to read it, you all have to hear it. Should we talk about what happened to him, or you want to come back to it?
It'll come. Okay. It'll come back. Because first we get Charlie's first test, which at first she walks into the room and they're like, okay, we're ready. And she goes, fuck you.
Fuck you are.
Because they're not listening to her.
They do not have the room set up in a safe way. They have, is it wood chips?
Yeah.
That's the first one. Nothing is insulated or protected.
It's sitting on a wooden table.
Yeah, there's a person right there. And most importantly, there's nothing for her to channel that energy into to burn it off like her father had taught her to do with the kitchen sink when she was a baby and then with the bathtub. And rightfully throws a fit.
Yeah.
And so they kind of figure that out. They're like, okay, fine. So they craft this better room with all the steel.
Everything is metal.
Yeah, nothing.
There's 6 air conditioners.
Nothing that can burn.
The guy that's monitoring her is wearing an asbestos suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Ben,
for good reason.
Do you want to get burned alive or do you want cancer?
So it's a good thing all of these precautions are taken, because the first test, she just fucking wrecks shit.
Yeah. Just explodes the pile of wood chips and then evaporates an entire bathtub full of water. And then in the fog, just walks out. Just leaves the room.
The room gets up over 100 degrees.
Yeah.
The guy takes off. He gets freaked out. The guy in the suit in there with her who's doing all the readings and controlling the machines, and leaves the door open, and she just walks off. And so everybody's, jerking off about this, and Cap goes to get her.
Yeah. And Hochstarter's just like, yeah, we did it. We did it. And Rainbird's just staring. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, she left. And so Charlie just walks out. And I was like, is this the escape?
Nope.
But the next chapter, she's just walking on the grounds to the stables with Rainbird.
I want to ask you guys real quick, because we talked last episode, Josh, you had a point about her parents taught her to suppress, not to control it. And Rainbird is sort of stepping into that role creepily.
Yeah, who is her father?
Her,
who is her father when her father's not around?
Yeah, encouraging her to learn control.
Excellent restraint going with father and not daddy, Ben.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Not while I'm drinking.
Sorry. Who's daddy when daddy ain't there?
No.
You're welcome. Yeah, and it kind of, in a gross way, proves my point. If this had been her dad getting her to do these things from when she first was able to, we wouldn't necessarily be in this situation, I don't think.
Yeah, and even if we were, Rainbird wouldn't have had that angle. Like, you need to show them because you need to practice control. And she probably would have never cracked, because I really don't think she would have ever cracked. I think she's strong enough. And Rainbird did too, although I'm not in love with her. But
So it's the day after. There was a staff meeting where everyone was like freaking out, and Rainbird just ran the meeting basically because he's the only one that seems to get what's going on. He's the only one that understands how to control Charlie.
Well, he's not impressed by her power so much as he just wants to kill her at some point. So he could care less.
I think
about. I mean, I don't think he's like
by her power.
But no, he's not. He's not going gaga over it the way that everyone else is, because that's not his goal or his priority. That's not what he's concerned himself with. It's not the most important thing about Charlie. Her death is to him.
Her pre-eroticism is.
God.
Ugh.
Aren't we all pre-erotic?
What?
I'm always pre-erotic.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Anyway,
Just means I'm a hop, skip, and a jump from being erotic at any moment. Surprise erotic!
But if you're always pre-erotic, that means you're never erotic.
I'm always ready to be erotic, and then I'm post-erotic, and then I'm back to pre-erotic.
I'm done with this conversation. Podcast over.
It's an erotic loop.
Anyway, Charlie gets a horse named Necromancer, which is so on the nose.
Yep.
And as she's petting the horse, John smiles and she sees it. And for the first time, she's like, the hell?
Yeah, there's some. And she's been having dreams about riding a horse bareback and being in the woods, and she can hear other horses, and there's fire.
The first time she has that dream, it's after this scene coming up between Andy and Cap.
Your brain looks very excited from here.
It's very pre-erotic.
Okay, so there's a short part where it's all the various shop members at home, and I was like, fuck this part. Why do these people why do we need to learn about their home lives? Although it does very shortly give us one paragraph of Pinchot was at home pulling ladies' underwear over his boner. And I'm like, why? Come on.
His massive boner.
Yeah.
It was described as massive.
And walking to the garbage disposal. And I just wrote, oh no. Anyway, Cap has a talk with Rainbird about how dangerous Charlie is. At this point, it's all just so duh. That it's not really that important.
That's why I was annoyed by it.
Although John does say that his plan is to kill Charlie with a single punch, which is nuts.
Which, if I recall, is also how her mom was killed.
A single
blow.
Oh, yeah, that's
how it's
right.
Described. Did Rainbird kill Vicky?
Wouldn't be surprised. It's never said, but
it's not. And if he did, though, I'm surprised that he didn't reminisce about it or think
unless
about
it wasn't
that
important to him.
I could see that too, honestly.
Anyway, then Pinchot kills himself.
He fists the vaginal disposal,
and he does not take his fist out until he's dead.
So Thank God they don't go into a lot of detail.
Yeah.
Hold on. Did you say fist the vaginal disposal?
Yeah.
That just caught up with me.
Awful.
God. Yeah. Thankfully, they don't go into a lot of detail.
Yeah, but this is also the moment that leads to the escape.
Yeah.
It is the most important part because it gets Andy in the room with Cap.
The fuse is lit at that death.
Because they bring him up and they literally just walk Andy into Cap's office and leave him alone because they are so certain he is useless.
Yep,
And his
done.
office is not bugged.
Yeah, because he's in charge. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And literally he says, you know what? We're sending you to Maui. And as he's reaching for the buzzer, Andy goes for it. This whole segment is so cool.
Yeah.
Because it's finally the comeuppance that Cap deserves. Because he looks at Andy with such disdain, which very quickly turns into him whimpering and saying, no, don't. That hurts. And you're like, fuck you.
Can we talk about Andy for a minute, though?
Yes.
When you said he looks at him with disdain, it reminded me, as we were going back and forth between him and Charlie, and we were seeing that contrast between how she was handling the situation and how he was. And he was sort of this pathetic, just beaten down nothing. He couldn't even muster energy to care about her or where she was, really, to change his actions. And he's still playing this part, this sappy, just pitiful guy. And I don't know, it just made me feel a lot of sympathy and a lot more respect for him.
Yeah, that he has no ego for himself. He said all these people are just so openly just
disgusted by
him. And he doesn't have the ego to say, hey, fuck you. He just, Charlie.
Yeah, he doesn't even stand up straighter. He just he leans into it and lets them think that he's worthless and useless.
All for Charlie. Yeah. Everything he does for the rest of the book is just thinking of Charlie is what gets him through, which I love Andy. He's such an amazing character. So there's this scene where he pushes Cap and he says he doesn't have a lot of time. He knows that he's in this room and if it takes too long, they're going to suspect something. So he gets Rainbird. Mm-hmm. Cap tells him everything about Rainbird. As angry as he is, he could have done, once again, he could use the push to do so much. He could have said, bring Rainbird here right now.
And then looked at Rainbird and said, your head exploded.
Yeah, exactly. But he doesn't, he has the patience and he pushes Cap into taking him to Pinchett's funeral the next day.
Which is amazing because he knows they have alone time and he can get way more information.
And after this meeting, or I guess during this meeting, Charlie is still in her quarters. She's having a dream. This is why I wanted to talk about the dream here, because it is immediately after Andy has pushed for the first time in months. And every time he pushes, it is described as a black horse being let out in his head.
Oh, damn.
And as soon as this happens,
that.
Charlie is having a dream of riding Necromancer, her black horse, through a burning forest.
Damn.
And I wanted to know what the connection is. Is this her being some telepathic connection to Andy and him trying to warn her?
I think whether he's doing it intentionally or not, yes, it is a connection and it is a warning, because even in the first part, when she was first taken, after camp, and he had to find her and he had to pull over after checking at this car wash and try to have an intuition, try to get that feeling to come. And he did. And then he'd also had that connection with his wife. He felt on his fingers when it was happening to her, he felt her fingernails being pulled out. So I think they did all share this connection, because he and Vicky were talking to each other telepathically. So maybe that was just another part of his power. He just pushed something out to Charlie.
Well, because we know that Charlie, at the very least, Charlie has the same powers as Andy does in regards to the push, except for hers is a shove. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it makes sense that she would have some of that. She'd carry some of that too.
And
God, that's cool. I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm. As she's riding her horse through the burning woods and she can hear the other horses and she's hoping that they're not dying, she sees a figure ahead of her, but she can't make out who it is. We know who it is.
Yeah.
Andy knows, but she doesn't.
For a second, she thinks that it's Andy. Another connection of how she's getting confused and conflating Rainbird with her dad. Sucks. So we go into this next chapter, Endgame, which it's not. I was going into this expecting oh shit, here it goes.
Wait, because isn't Firestarter
the
last chapter?
Yeah, because this is the setup. This is the setup for the final confrontation. Charlie goes in for what becomes the final test. And it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's a cinder block wall that she increases the temperature to 7,000 degrees and it explodes.
No, incorrect.
Oh.
The sensor, there's a heat sensor inside of this concrete structure that increases to 7,000 degrees so fast you can only watch it in slow motion. And it says it doesn't stop at 7,000 because that's how hot it got. It stopped because that's when the heat sensing device melted.
Yes, my mistake.
And she sets cinder blocks on fire so quickly that you can only see it in slow motion.
And then everyone's like, oh, she could blow up the world.
Yeah, it's actually 30, they say it's actually upwards of 30,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Jesus.
But they're not going to worry about that right now.
7,000 degrees is approximately as hot as the edge of the Earth's core.
Oh, damn.
She is almost 5 times hotter than that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And this is just a small thing. There's another memo from one of the technicians saying that we should stop because they say that it's so hot. And what's weirder is they say her telemetry is not, her brain is not acting stressed. There's no
energy coming out of her body, more calories being burned. It's not taking anything out of her to do this.
The part that I personally thought was the coolest.
Yeah.
Because
Andy, it takes.
She is, and that's just not how physics works.
Yeah.
There has to be an equal and opposite. You cannot create energy out of nothing. You can't, but she is. And that's scary.
I wish we had more of that.
Yes, because they say, is she creating this or is it coming through her from somewhere else? Wish we had an answer to that question.
And that's how we got the movie The Core.
What?
And
she takes all the energy from the core of the earth and it stops. And then all the birds fall out of the sky and pacemakers stop working. And that
ladies
one
and
guy
gentlemen,
has to go to the center of I love end of the world movies.
Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the first time anyone has referenced the movie The Core in 20 years. So after she's demonstrated the ultimate demonstration of her powers, she says, I want to see my dad. And it's over.
Yeah. Hochstetter nearly shits his pants because he's terrified of her.
Yeah, they finally, after 6 months, they're finally like, oh, she's unstoppable. She's in charge.
Their first reaction when she did that should have been to put a bullet through her brain. I mean, I'm glad they didn't. Or, okay, you're free. Bye. Just get out of
open
here.
the door.
We can't contain you.
Exactly. What did they think they could do?
They don't think ever. They're so incompetent.
She says, after Hochstetter's I'll see what I can do. Charlie says, I just want to see my daddy. And I'm going to. I hope you hear me because I'm going to. That's the point where you're like, yep.
All right, go
whatever you want, Empress. You're in charge.
Go anywhere you want.
But she lets them lock her back up, and she starts to cry because she is unsure that she can stop lighting fires.
Because I don't know that we've ever talked about this. She likes it. It feels good.
Yeah.
I think we alluded to it in the first half, but yeah, it's gotten so much more than that because through this testing, she's gotten more control, not necessarily control over it, but she's gotten much more precise and much more powerful.
Well, and she does have more control because she is able to make it back off instead of
a little bit.
It's easier to get it to back off than it was
and she's
before.
trying. Before, she's just like, nope, it's gone, and she's gone, and now she's actively trying to make it stop.
Can I talk about the funeral?
Yes.
For a moment and the car ride with Cap? Because this is one of my favorite moments in this book. Andy goes to Pinchett's funeral, and he has this moment where he thinks about everything he's been through, everything Pinchett put him through. He sees Pinchett's wife and kids and knows that every single person there by now has to know how he was found and just how crazy and everything that was. And Andy thinks to himself, in the end, Pynchon has proved to be just a little too small to hate. Like, he legitimately, like, this pathetic guy was such a nobody in this machine. And for all this time, he was like my God in control of my life. And here he is, just this nothing, which I thought was really just brutal, but awesome. So they get back into Cap's car, or the limo, and they are making their way back. And Andy, again, wastes no time. He knows he's only got this car ride to get information. And he asks Cap if all of the arrangements are in order. Cap says yes. And he says, okay, here's the thing. You are going to change the flight. We're going to leave Wednesday instead of Saturday. You're going to bring Charlie. We're all going to get on this plane. You'll find out where we are refueling. And then you're going to make Rainbird go to San Diego. You're going to send him across the country so he's not in the way. And you're going to take this note to Charlie to let her know what the plan is. And then we are all getting out of here. So he unloads all of this information and sits back. And that's when he noticed that his numb spots are back and they're bigger. At which point I made the note, Andy will be 100% dead by the end of this book.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. No way. But because the push works, Cap follows the whole plan. But his thoughts keep drifting to golf. Wonder what that's about.
Huh.
Like, they don't try to hide it. Because as he keeps pushing, he keeps flutter pushing, little light pushes to keep Cap under it. And he's like, I'm absolutely sure I'm going to do an echo on this guy. And he just doesn't fucking care. So after they get back from the funeral, Cap thinks, boy, I sure am having a productive day today. Because he immediately calls and arranges for the flight to be moved up. And then thinks, you know what? I think I'm going to go visit Charlie. But the whole time he's acting real weird. I love when he walks up to his new receptionist and they have the drawer of their desk pulled out, which was actually foreshadowed earlier in the book, because they say that they have to have a gun in their desk and it has to be within reach. So it's just they have one of their drawers slightly pulled out and the whole time Cap's just like staring directly at this drawer. And when the receptionist's like, what's up? And he's like, you should shut that. They like to hide in dark places. And then just wanders off. And he goes down to see Charlie and is acting drugged and old and asks her about, I hear your dad's good at golf. And she's like, huh? Sure, I guess. And he hands her a note.
And she recognizes the way he's acting.
That's right.
And it was such a weird comment. She's like, I remember that happening with some of my dad's clients.
So Cap gives her the note, and the note has the detailed plan. We're escaping Wednesday. You have to be at the stables at 1. Also, don't trust Rainbird. He's one of the bad guys. And it breaks Charlie's heart.
Yeah.
Honestly, I get why he would tell her. Terrible idea.
Yes.
Because even though he's like, I hope this doesn't upset you too much, but I know you and I know it will. Anyway, don't let him know. Just don't tell her.
I think he underestimated her relationship with Rainbird and just how far in he had gotten.
I agree.
But I think he also wanted to end the discussion of, like, they go to escape, and she's like, no, my friend has to come.
Or says goodbye. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, she's still a kid. So.
That's true. She could have let it slip if she was saying goodbye.
Yeah.
And it upsets her so much that she sleep boils a toilet.
Yep.
Which is my favorite sentence that I've ever written. She sleepwalks, and in her sleep just pushes the fire, her power into her toilet and makes Hochstetter go, oh, fuck. Like, immediately is like the next day, Hochstetter is going to suggest we have to stop the tests now. But she wakes up angry, and when Rainbird comes in, she's like, I'm going to go in my room.
And that's what she used to do before he, got in and became her friend. And so he knows something's up too.
He immediately figures out the whole plan
using
the worst computer interface I have ever read.
Did you understand
did you see
what that was?
It's the brand Deus Ex Macintosh.
Dibs on the band name. Fuck. Yeah, he like goes into the computer. We didn't mention this, that in the first half of the book, when he goes to Cap saying, okay, I'm going to help you out with Charlie, but I get to kill her. The leverage he uses against Cap is that he hacked into their computer system and was like, I have all this evidence against the shop and I'll fucking send it out. And you guys are fucked because I have no allegiance to the shop. I just want to kill this little girl. So he's like a computer hacker, I guess.
Yeah.
But also he gets on the computer and it's nonsense. He's like, computer, what's the probability that Andy McGee can still push? And the computer knows what that means, except for once when it doesn't, because Stephen King is like, no, it can't be that that advanced.
Yeah, it's like 0% chance he has his powers. And he's like, what are the odds that he got his powers back and pushed this guy into banging his disposal and has since brainwashed the head of the organization? And the computer's like, da-da-da-da-da. You got it. Yeah. It's just a thumbs up emoji.
I just wrote 90% probability. Sure. I guess. Whatever. Either way, it's so unnecessary. It could have easily... We know that Rainbird is very smart and very good at reading situations. Yeah. This entire segment could have been Rainbird going, well, Andy got his powers back. And we would have been like, oh, yeah, he knows.
Yeah, he put it together.
But no, they have to have this horrible 80s computer.
This brings me to a quick question I have. After he does that, he logs under Cap's computer and cancels the flight, thus destroying the exit plan. But then it says he went to go see his lawyer.
Yeah, that never comes back, does it?
And here's what the hypothesis I made that never came to be. He goes to a lawyer, presumably to make Charlie his beneficiary. I had this weird notion that somehow was going to be related.
I thought...
That would have been nice.
I thought it was going to be because early in the book, during that segment where he's like, Cap, I have all this evidence against you, and if you kill me, it'll get sent out anyway. I assumed he was going to his lawyer with all of that evidence to be like, when I'm dead, just fucking kill the shop. Because Rainbird says for a second he thinks about letting Charlie and Andy get away. He thinks about it because he's like, it'll destroy the shop and I don't care. But he had to be going to his lawyer to make that not happen because he does die and that information never comes out. Yeah, it's just a weird red herring that doesn't mean anything.
The lawyer also works for the shop.
It is not addressed for the rest of the book, and we have given it more thought than the book has. Fair. So we now go into the real end game. And my notes for the rest of the book read, oops, I forgot to take notes.
My first note,
it goes bonkers pretty quick.
My first note is Rainbird looks at Charlie with, quote, a lover's eye.
No.
Oh, I forgot. I did not notice that.
I had a subfolder that said notes that'll hurt CM.
I really, because like there is a lot of the weird fatherly. It is described. He's like he looks at her in a fatherly way. He says it with a fatherly grin.
Like a sexy father.
But that's a weird tone to say that. But
CM, pre-erotic father.
Oh yeah. Post-erotic father.
Oh.
Pre-erotic daughter. I'm going to cut
what
this.
are we talking about?
Oh my God.
Welcome to our really disgusting taboo podcast.
I've lost the thread of this conversation. So the day of the escape comes, and Charlie just very casually says, I want to go to the stables around 1:00. And Cap, who is the Echo, is at full force. He is completely out of it. Is just like, yeah, fine. I don't
Do you think
care.
she's ever asked to go to the stables precisely 1:45?
Yeah, that is. She does a lot of stuff that like
She's
apparently
9.
no one's paying attention
Yeah.
because she literally Cap tells the agent that takes her to the stables, just take her and leave her there.
Wait, doesn't he also say, we're going to escape?
Yeah. That's
At
a little bit
certain
later,
point.
yeah.
So Charlie goes to the stables, but not after Rainbird has already shown up.
His plan is genius. It really is. He gets there, he pulls a gun on the guy who runs the stable and is like, everybody leave out the back, don't come back. And then he locks all of the stalls to trap the horses because he knows she won't risk lighting the place on fire if it means all the horses are going to die. And then he takes up a hidden position.
Charlie shows up. The guy that she's with is like real by the books, is like, hey, I have the girl here who's here. And Rainbird is about to just shoot him in the chest because who the fuck cares? When Charlie burns this guy, she heats up his gun and just says, get the fuck out of here or I'll burn you to death. And
Do you remember
bolts?
Do you remember who that guy is?
Don Jules, I believe.
The one who took out her dad at the lake house?
Oh, I recognized the name, but I
Yeah.
forgot who it was. So he bolts as Cap is going to get Andy. And this is the point where as they're leaving, Andy has filled him in on their instructions. We're going to get in your car. We're going to go to the stables, pick up Charlie. And we're going to get out of here. And as they're leaving the station, a guy goes, so where are you headed off to? And Cap goes, we're going to the stables to get Charlie so we can all escape. Which is hilarious.
Yes, so good. And then Andy's like, shit, and pushes them to like give the details about where they're going and like, haha, kidding. And they arrive at the stables just in time to, when they throw open the door, Charlie is on the ladder climbing her way up to Rainbird in the loft.
Because he confronted her. She knows, all that good stuff.
Right.
Exactly.
And then we get the super powered Mexican standoff. Rainbird saying, if either one of you uses your power on me, I will kill the other one. In hopes that will make things not happen.
Which I call bullshit
I do
on.
too.
Yeah.
Andy could have just been like, don't.
Yeah. You don't want to kill Charlie.
Yeah, that's
Or me.
that's not how it works.
Your head exploded.
yeah.
That's all he has to do.
Luckily for us, Cap thinks a hose is a snake and freaks out, which I laughed so loud.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, they even set it up because Charlie's kind of freaking out. Her power gets out a little bit.
Yep.
And she like forces it into a bucket, but it still gets out of control and it like fuses this hose and it points out like in this description, it's just like, and there's a hose there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, they really set that hose up for the final confrontation. Yeah, Cap freaks out, and in the split second that Rainbird is distracted,
So
Andy, he could have said fucking anything.
so many things he could have said.
He could have said, die.
Or sleep.
Or sleep.
Oh, God,
Would have
yes!
And he would have fallen
If
and
it
died.
ain't broke, don't fix it. But no, he yells jump and pushes harder than he ever has. I knew this was coming this time, but the first time I read this book, I don't remember a lot of this book, but this scene, this whole scene in the stable is so burned into my memory because Andy's death killed me. It's set up throughout the whole book. It's so obvious that he's not going to survive.
Right.
Like, this power has his death baked into it. But when he pushes he says he feels something give, and it just ruined me. What did you guys think of Andy's
He
death?
literally like blows out the left side of his body.
And his face, it's like he
has
has
a
a
stroke.
stroke. Yeah,
Yeah.
his face is sagging and he falls and he can't get back up. And
Also, he gets shot in the neck, which
Yes.
doesn't help.
Rainbird. Yeah,
It
Rainbird
sure
falls, and then he fires off a shot and gets Andy, and then Charlie has to watch her father die.
But
Not before. Rainbird but he won't just shoot at Charlie. He's got to make eye contact with her first, which is his last mistake. Because he turns, she looks at him, he fires his gun, and she superheats the distance between them. One, to the point that the bullet just disintegrates, but it also ripples the flesh and chars the bones straight through him.
Terminator 2.
Yes. Yep.
That is the image of, there's a split second of just a bright light, and I can see Rainbird just looking at her, and then just skeleton.
Yeah.
Do you think he got what he was wanting?
Oh, no, well, he died. So, kinda.
Kind of, yeah. And then Charlie proceeds to, because now the stable's on fire, and she blows out one of the walls so that the horses can get out, because that's her first priority.
No, unfortunately for the horses.
And then she runs over and has her final words with Andy. And he pulls her close and he says that she has to get out no matter what happens, because they are going to try to kill her before they let her get out. And she needs to make it out so she can take this whole thing down so that they can never do this to anyone again. And then he
And
slips
make
away.
it look like war, like the shop has been in a war.
And what happens next is just that. Charlie lays waste to the shop. She pushes Don Jules 40 feet, turning him into a fireball into the duck pond. She sends tendrils of fire out, burning agents. People get so panicked they run trying to climb the electric fences and die.
And they get attacked by the dogs.
The dogs that run
Dogs
between
are freaking
them.
out.
She walks over and sees the building, and she says, that's the building they kept me captive. That's the building where John betrayed me. And then she fucking blows it up in a split second. And like
That's amazing.
a typewriter flies across the grounds and makes a crater 100 feet away.
And she's using so much energy that she finally tells it, back off, and she channels all of it into the pond. And there is so much that when it's over, there are just a few small puddles left in the pond. She burned it all up.
And keeps saying, well, we also get a small section from OJ,
yeah.
the guy from the beginning of the
Which
book.
I love that
Okay.
section.
That was when it all starts, there's like 2 paragraphs of him in the break room, in the shop break room, and the alarms go off, and he sits down and goes, "Nuh-uh,
Yep.
not me."
Nope.
And he fucking lives and gets away.
Yeah.
That was kind of a bummer.
Climbs the fence and just pieces
That
out.
they really set him up. They named his gun and everything.
Yeah.
And then all he does is run away, and you never hear from him again. Come on.
But Charlie makes her way out. And there's one moment I want to talk about real quick, is that she climbs the fence and leaves. There's a woman who tried earlier, fell and broke her arm, who's still lying there. And the woman calls her a witch and says it's 100% her fault. And Charlie says, no, I didn't do this. You did this. This is your fault, which I 100% agree with. But there was this moment where she turns and walks away, and like a part of me was hoping that she would just fry that lady.
I feel you.
But like, in the end, I'm glad that she had enough and walked away. I just thought that was a neat way to end that confrontation. And she says she doesn't know where she starts leaving. And she says, I don't know where I'm going, but I know they'll never catch me again.
And this is the final bit of the contrast between Charlie and Rainbird, I think. That little interaction. Because both of them have been wronged. Both of them were mistreated. They are what they are because the government fucked them over really bad. But whereas Rainbird said, life is hard and garbage, so I'm going to become a murder machine that is suicidal, because that's what he is. He has a death wish. But Charlie, she's been through all of this and she kills a lot of people. But she says, no, this isn't who I am. And she tells this woman, no, I'm not going to kill myself. She rejects that death wish that Rainbird had.
It's like I said earlier.
Yeah.
People respond to things different ways.
Exactly. I love it. And which brings us to more or less the epilogue, this last chapter, which I don't know about you guys.
Took way too long.
Was one of the most disappointing endings.
Well, let's sum it up then.
Yeah.
She makes her way where else but to the Manders farm. Well, New Manders farm. Because she destroyed the last one. And they very graciously welcome her, even Norma. They take her in. They take care of her. They call the town doctor. They have him check her out. You know, she's dehydrated. She has an infection. She's been making her way to them, hitching rides and stuff. And so she recovers. And slowly but surely, the information gets out that they have this little girl in their home, because the doctor tells his girlfriend, and a couple months later, and then a couple weeks later, she tells a friend, and then like 5 seconds later, that friend tells someone. So we actually end, which I thought the very end was pretty cool. Charlie makes her way to the city because she is intending to out the shop and give her story. And she goes to the library, and I love libraries. Maybe that's why I like it. She's like, I need an unbiased, not in the pockets of any government or any politician. I need an honest paper. And the next thing we know, she's walking into the offices of the Rolling Stone, which is interesting because weren't you saying the shop?
The shop, they did an article about the shop in the Rolling Stone.
So we'll see how that goes.
See, that's what I thought was weird. Like, how weird it was that the book ends with just an ad for Rolling Stone of King being like, yeah, that's the one good periodical, I guess.
That's
I don't
the
know.
place.
I like New Scientist, but whatever.
Yeah. And it ends with her getting to tell her story, but we don't know where it goes from there.
Yeah, or if it goes anywhere.
Exactly. Sure. So
I think he chose the Rolling Stones because it leaves it kind of in the air, because they did do a piece on the shop. So either it's going to be like, oh, we're familiar with them. Oh, we didn't know this though. Or
well, and we know she's going to physically show them her power. Mm-hmm. Like, so she's going to tell them everything. And that's really, really cool.
And that is Firestarter.
Get to our ratings, shall we?
Yeah.
Well, I did not really like this book that much. I had a lot of little problems that just took me out of chunks of it. And then there were some sections that went on too long. Like I said, the 5 pages, am I smarter than this book? And then this long dragging epilogue. There were so many of those sections that just drug the whole story down for me. And I came into recording thinking that this was going to be like a 2 for me. But when we talk about it, man, there's so much fun stuff to talk about.
This always happens.
It does. It always happens. And so I've got to round it up. I've got to give it a 3. It was fun to talk about it. It wasn't so much fun to read it. And I will remember the highlights.
Yeah. What?
But I would give it 3 blue chambray shirts.
You know what? I gotta mostly agree. I remember loving this book, but the fact that I didn't remember any specifics should have been an indicator of how I really feel. I feel like it's a book with a lot of cool ideas, and I would love to read more books set in the same world, more books about Lot 6 maybe, or other people with going up against the shop, maybe something like that. But I feel like I will not remember this book in a month or two.
Sure.
Worth the read. Definitely not his best. 3 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
I ultimately think it's a fun little adventure action book. I have this sense from it that if I had read it when I was a teenager, it would have been more meaningful to me because there's so many cool elements in it that just hit you that way when you're that age. And so I'm like 35 reading this, and it's a little bit different. It's lost some of the magic that it would have had. But I did really like the relationship of Andy and Charlie, especially considering the fact that that seemed so absent in the first half of the book because they're on the run and everything's so frantic. So overall, I'm not going to go down as one of my favorites, but I did really enjoy it and enjoy talking to you guys about it. 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
No surprise there.
That's it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode where we will be watching the movie Firestarter. For Benjamin Graham and CM Alexander, I'm Joshua Kahn reminding you, it's a war. Make them know they've been in a war.
Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. Thanks for listening to Firestarter Part 2. Last episode, we talked about the shop cameos, and I missed one from a highly underrated little story called The Langoliers. According to StephenKingFandom.com, the shop is mentioned in this story when Bob Jenkins throws the shop's name into the hat as the time-displaced characters attempt to solve the mystery of their situation. If you haven't read and or seen The Langoliers, go pick it up. It's in 4 past midnight. Overall ratings on this book, excluding yours truly, weren't very high. It may not be our favorite, but Firestarter has definitely influenced other amazing stuff like Stranger Things. Let us know how many blue chambray shirts you'd give it on our social media at Derry Public Radio or email us at derrypublicradio@gmail.com. Huge thank you to everyone who's rated and reviewed us on iTunes. We wouldn't bug you about it if it didn't really make so much of a difference on the charts. It's the best way for other people to find us. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.